I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Adam Hamilton. He's the CEO of ZealLLC.com. He's speaking to us from Colorado. Welcome back to the show, Adam.
Hey, Jim. Thanks so much for having me.
Were you surprised or shocked at the election results?
Oh, man, all the above. Just so everybody knows, I've been a lifelong Republican. I've never voted Democrat in my life. I didn't think Hillary had the chances to win that the media had. There were all kinds of problems with the polling down here in the States. For instance, most of the polls I looked in, polls publish their summary of like who they're polling. And every poll I looked into, Jim, had a huge oversampling of Democrats. Like they, for instance, would have 44% Democrats and 37% Republicans in their sample size. So to me, it looked like there's a built-in 7-point lead for Hillary in almost all the mainstream polls. The polls weren't random. You know, they weren't just calling people at random, which to me is what polling should be. If you handpick your demographics for a poll, you know that particular demographic votes a certain way in most elections. It seems to me like you're just tailoring the poll to what you want to see, and I think that's what the American media did. So I expected the chances of Trump winning were way higher. Another thing I was looking at, Jim, is the stock markets. I did a study last week. If you go back through every presidential election since 1888, I chose that date because 1885 was when the Dow Jones Industrial Average started out. It wasn't called the Dow Jones Industrial Average back then, but it started out then anyway. And if you look at what the stock markets did in the final 3 months before a presidential election, if the stock markets were up, the incumbent party had a high odds of winning. If the stock markets were down, the incumbent party had high odds of losing. And I think the reason is because people vote with their wallet. You know, everybody wants a better standard of life for their family, and if the stock markets are down, they tend to feel like the economy is going down too. I mean, that's a tenuous link, but just people tend to, the economy is so big and complex and hard to get our heads around. I think people tend to equate the stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average levels, with how the economy is doing. They hear that in the evening news every day in the States, you know, Dow up 10, Dow down 50, whatever. And so, anyway, since 1888, there's been a 75% chance that the incumbent party will win or lose based on what the stock markets do in the 3 months before the election. So that put Trump at a 75% odds of winning. I wrote about that in an essay last Friday. And so I didn't think that Hillary had had overwhelming odds of winning. You know, they were putting it at 95% yesterday, like New York Times, some of the liberal media outlets in the States. But nevertheless, I was hugely surprised and shocked because everybody, even the markets, had it totally wrong, Jim. They totally expected just an overwhelming Clinton victory and that Trump would get crushed. So it was an amazing and surprising and exhausting night, really.
Well, also, I noticed in states that Hillary thought that she was going to win, she didn't bother campaigning in. She didn't even, and I thought with her big war chest, she had probably left tens of millions of dollars that she could have spent on advertising she never spent.
Yeah, you know, the postmortem will be really interesting, and I think hindsight's always 20/20. You know, I've never been a Hillary fan for a lot of reasons, but she had something like $2 billion to run that campaign, and even the Republicans were claiming that as one of the best run campaigns executed, one of the best ground games ever seen, one of the biggest and best big data operations. And so I think she did a lot of things right, but I think the campaign was kind of arrogant in their view that Hillary would get all the Obama vote, the young people, the African Americans. They didn't turn out like Hillary expected. And I think, you know, white America, middle America, the rural areas, the Rust Belt, you know, they just feel like the elites have just, Washington's passed them by and left them. It doesn't care about their concerns. And I think the Clinton campaign really underestimated the angst in middle America and you know, a lot of people haven't had a raise for 17 years. You know, there's stagnant incomes, towns dying, jobs leaving, and regardless of the reason, Americans want to be heard. They want to change a direction. Another factor was Obamacare. You know, that's just crushing small business here in the States. I'm 42 years old, Jim. I have 2 young kids. So with a family of 4, before Obamacare, like back in 2008, our insurance was like $100 a month or so for catastrophic insurance, and that's all we needed. You know, if we if I get cancer or something or have a heart attack, I just want to be able to pay for really expensive medical care. I can afford to pay for anything, that's within the realm of normal for my family. But I think this year, we live in Colorado. On the Colorado exchanges, it costs our healthy family of 4. We don't smoke, we don't drink, we sleep 8 hours a night. My wife and I exercise 5 days a week. Our kids are super healthy, never any problems ever in our health histories. It costs us like maybe $1,600, $1,700 a month for a family of 4, and I mean, almost no one can afford that. It's just ridiculous. And so the elites in Washington are really putting the squeeze in the middle class in America, and I think that the voters really wanted to be heard last night, and they were. It was pretty awesome.
Mr. Trump says he's going to replace Obamacare with something terrific. What would be terrific?
I don't know. I'm no expert on public policy and health. I know that pre-Obamacare there were problems. I know that people with pre-existing conditions couldn't get health care. In Canada, you guys have government health care, is my understanding, and I think there's some benefits to that. Obviously, if you pay premiums, or the premiums are low, but taxes are higher, but, you get your care, but you have to wait a while for it. So I don't know. I haven't thought this through. I don't know much about health care. I just know that the premiums were unaffordable under Obamacare for most Americans, and that had to change. So I'm really interested to see what Trump proposes and his team proposes. One thing I really respect about Trump is that he's going to surround himself with really smart people, experts in this who really understand it, who can dig deep, who can, analyze this kind of thing. And I just think that his team will figure out something better, since Obamacare is such a disaster.
Well, also, too, something you have to admire about Trump, he promised last night that he would do his best, that he's never done anything in his life that he expected to fail at, and so he would put the same kind of effort into being president.
I believe it. I feel empathy towards the Democrats losing last night. As a lifelong Republican, I've never voted Democrat in my life, and I remember just the despair and despondence I felt in November 2004, November 2008 when Obama won. I thought he was a socialist and a Marxist at the time. I still think that today. I think his policies have been really tough for America. But being on the losing side of a presidential election is such a tough thing. So I understand the criticisms of Trump. I understand people don't like his arrogance, his lewd comments, his brashness, his boldness, his aggressiveness, his, alpha male type personality. But I think he has good instincts, Jim, and I think deep down under that billionaire persona, he has a good heart. Who among us, if we were a billionaire, wouldn't be a bit arrogant and prideful, if we had that kind of success. And, I think Americans kind of saw through that, saw that he was sincere, he was truthful with us, he didn't lie to us and pander to us like most politicians did. He spoke straight to us, and I think we really appreciate that. And so it's just a nice breath of fresh air to have someone who speaks their mind and who's so rich that there should be no financial incentive for him to profit from government. If he's worth $8 or $10 billion now, he doesn't need to be corrupt to enrich himself like the Clintons did. And so it's just really, really refreshing, really, really encouraging.
I understand, too, that, again, from the speech, he plans to spend a lot of money on infrastructure improvement. That's the same plan that Prime Minister Trudeau has for Canada as well.
And that's interesting. That's the same thing Obama wanted to do as well. I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't believe in spending beyond your means. I think you'd probably agree with me on that, Jim. And so I'm really concerned about that aspect of Trump, and I always have been. If he has a big infrastructure spending program, it's probably going to add to the national debt, which doubled under Obama to something like $19 trillion today. And as a fiscal conservative, concerned about the future of the country for my children, I really wish that there'd be some way to rein in that spending or pay down that debt. Maybe Trump will do that. Maybe his tax cuts will unleash such amazing economic growth, the whole Reaganomics theory, that the deficit will go down. Of course, I realize the debt and deficit didn't go down under Reagan because of the Cold War, but I don't know, that's a big gap in Trump's plan as a fiscal conservative, and that's why a lot of Republicans were hesitant to support him, because they think he's going to be a big spender. So I don't know about that. Back to your earlier question, Jim, one other thing I want to say is Trump works 20 hours a day. Apparently he's trained himself to need 5 hours of sleep. And I just really appreciate that in a president, someone who wants to work all day long. Hillary had a lot of health issues. She had some issues walking upstairs. There were weird eye movements, tiredness, that fainting episode in New York City that morning where it was like 70 degrees. And so I think her health would have been a big problem. That's probably the most demanding job in the world. And I appreciate that Trump has such stamina even for his age, and he can work hard. And I think he'll just assemble a great team. He'll be able to make some progress in these really big problems America faces.
What's the business attitude now that you have, it looks like, Republicans all across the board?
Well, it's kind of funny, being in my business, markets and trading, I watch CNBC, the major financial news channel in the U.S., all day, every day as I'm doing my work. And yesterday, the consensus was that the markets didn't want unified government because the markets like gridlock, therefore government can't screw things up. And as you and your viewers know, last night when Trump started to win enough electoral votes to push him towards the edge, U.S. stock market index futures just plummeted. I mean, it was just colossal. Like SPX futures, S&P 500 futures had fallen limit down 5%. They just collapsed 5% straight down last night. Lost 1/20th of the value of the U.S. stock markets, and then they hit limit down. Limit down here doesn't actually close that market, but it just makes it so they can't be priced under that level. You can still trade them above that. But anyway, it looked like it'd just be a catastrophe. And I think Dow futures, which I don't follow closely because I'm an S&P guy, I think they were down like 800 points, Jim. It was just colossal. It looked like the end of the world last night in futures terms. It was like wild. Gold went up to 1340, which I love being a gold guy. But today the markets are calm. Here in the States, midday, the markets are up 0.75%. So we're talking about a 900-point rally in the Dow since, last night, midnight or so Eastern time. And so the markets really, they like the idea of less regulation, lower taxes. They're hoping that maybe Trump on trade won't be as extreme as some of his rhetoric implied. And so this is colossal. Like everybody yesterday, including myself, which I was dead wrong on, thought that if Trump won, there'd be a colossal down day in the markets today, a huge rally in gold. I wish I was right in the gold side, but I'm not, unfortunately. And so it's really cool in America how people, we're so into this election process. We so want our team to win, but once the game's over, we're like, okay, we're all Americans. Let's just move forward. Hillary had a great conciliatory concession speech this morning. Even Obama had a great speech just before our interview about helping Trump and being gracious to him and wanting to be as successful as possible. And so the markets are taking this amazingly well. I'm just shocked at how well the markets are taking this so far, a few hours in.
We'll have more with Adam Hamilton right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Adam Hamilton. Adam, what do you think is going to happen with the U.S. dollar following the election?
That's a really good question, Jim. There was a lot of scaremongering before the election that if Trump won, he'd be too protectionist, and that would kind of reduce the dollar's standing in the world, therefore less dollar demand, lower dollar prices. I doubt Trump will be as protectionist as people feared. I thought that was a lot of scaremongering. Trump's always been for fair trade, not free trade. Like if other countries want to sell in the United States, that's great. If they want to sell without tariffs here, great. But then the United States should have access to their markets tariff-free. And that's not the way a lot of the trade deals work in the world. I heard this morning on NAFTA that U.S. goods have like a 14 or 15% tariff or something being sold in Mexico, yet Mexican goods could be sold in the States for no tariff, and Trump just wants fair trade. He's all for world trade, but just doesn't want the U.S. to get raked across the coals in this. So I don't think the dollar will fall on Trump on trade. I think there will be some renegotiation of trade deals to make them fair for American exporters. But, the dollar's back to pure markets, not Trump. The dollar's been really popular leading in this election. It's been really high. The long dollar trade is really popular among hedge funds. So on a pure technical sentiment basis, I think the dollar's oversold, needs to sell off. And I don't think Trump's win will affect that. And that goes for the broader market cycles. And I've been thinking a lot about stock markets and gold and what's going to happen if Trump wins. And just a few hours into this, I haven't really reached any, amazing conclusions yet. But, elections don't stop stock market cycles. The stocks are overvalued like they were going into this election. If they've been in a long bull market, they're still due for a bear. If gold's undervalued, it's still due to rally. And so I don't think change in political power will affect market cycles. It might delay them, extend them, distort them a little bit, but market cycles that need to happen for fundamental reasons should still happen. I think that's the case in the dollar, the stock market's, gold, and everything. And so, but I'm still formulating my thoughts on that. It's so new in the process.
Well, for the Alberta oil patch, Trump's good news because he's in favor of the XL pipeline that Obama vetoed.
I think that's fantastic news too. Most Americans never figured out why Keystone XL wasn't approved. We're all for getting oil from our great neighbors to the north rather than all the crazy radicals in the Middle East who want to kill us, and fund terrorism. And so most of America was kind of shocked that the State Department under Obama and Hillary wouldn't approve that pipeline. We think they're just trying to appease the environmental lobby. It made no sense. But, yeah, I think Obama will approve the Keystone XL pipeline within days of being inaugurated.
Or Trump.
It's a project they'll make jobs installing it. It'll make for lower energy prices in the long run, which will be good for American companies, good for the economy, good for Canadian companies, obviously, to be able to sell their oil down here. So, yeah, there's no doubt that's going to go through. That's awesome news.
Yeah, I noticed all the states directly south of Alberta and Saskatchewan, the oil producers, voted Republican. So they obviously know where the jobs are.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Living in the Denver area, I know a lot of oil people. Oil is a big industry in this town, and no matter what people's social position was, if they were in the oil industry, they tend to vote Republican, whether they agree socially with Republicans or not, just because Republicans are for free markets. We want to bring as much energy to market as possible, have the lowest prices as possible for consumers. We don't want to have extra fees, extra regulations. We want it to be safe, of course, but so yeah, oil patch overwhelmingly Republican, always has been, always will be, and I totally can understand why.
What's your standing on carbon taxes, which probably would have been big if the Democrats won?
Oh, I think they're ludicrous. I think it's just a government regulatory play to take power from people. It just makes no sense at all. I'm skeptical of the whole man-made global warming thing. There's great cycles in climate that last thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, whatever, and there's been little ice ages in history. There's been warming cycles in history. I just don't think 100 and 150 years of industrial age data is enough to say what the human impact is. And the idea of taxing people on it, make American consumers pay more for electricity on this whole climate change notion where there's been so much fraud. There's been liberal scientists fabricating data all the time. There's all kinds of scandals that come out about this stuff, and I'm definitely a skeptic on it. It might be true, but it might not be. And so I think carbon taxes are just a ludicrously absurd, ridiculous idea.
Well, I don't see how.
So I'm really happy they're not going to happen.
Yeah, I can't see how a carbon tax is going to control things like the tilt of the Earth, its orbit, asteroid hits, volcanoes, and sunspots. How do those taxes control any of that?
And climate changes, there's a lot of ancient cities, like sites where cities existed for thousands of years, where something happened, the water supply dried up, and the city disappears. And humans move, we migrate, we go to different places, we evolve, for lack of a better word. And so if oceans rise by 2 or 3 feet and cities have to move inland a little bit gradually, I don't think it's the end of the world. The cycle. There's always been cycles on Earth. There always will be in the climate. The sun doesn't output constant heat and light, and that affects them. And so the whole idea that we're going to make life hard for humans and make it really expensive for Americans is just silly to me. Doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, Adam, good luck with your new president.
Thanks. We're really excited. A lot of hope. It's a new day for America. Hopefully we can roll back some regulation and have a better, freer country in the future. It's a really awesome day. Really thankful for it.
Thanks again. My guest has been Adam Hamilton, CEO of ZealLLC.com. He's speaking to us from Colorado. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.